So Unit 2 is personal development in care settings. Again, it's a combined unit of both knowledge and competence. So 1.1, you've got to describe the duties and responsibilities of your own work role. So what I could suggest for this assessment criteria is get your job description, have a look at it and just describe in brief your duties, what you do on a day-to-day basis within your work role. Look at those organisational goals, the objectives you're there to achieve, and just write about them. Just explain to me what you do on a day-to-day in your own work role. So 1.2 then asks you to look at the standards, the regulatory requirements and things that influence how you work. So my suggestion is that you have a look at the Skills for Care Codes of Professional Conduct, and that's a code of professional practice expected by you as a social care worker. If you also have a look at the National Occupational Standards and search your own job description, you'll be able to find your role and it'll identify what's expected of you within that certain job description. You can also have a look at the care standards or care regulations. So we know that CQC have got a very extensive list of regulations that we must follow whilst we're working in health and social care. So within this answer, what you're looking for is the standards, the codes of practice, the regulations that have an impact on how we develop as a professional and what we have to follow and comply with whilst working in health and social care. So 1.3 then asks us to describe how we ensure that our own attitudes, values, beliefs and behaviours doesn't obstruct the quality of work that we do. Whilst it's important to recognise that we've all got different beliefs, we all have different choices of lifestyles, we've all got different values, it's paramount to the care that we give that we put these values and beliefs and differences to one side in order to provide quality care and not obstruct the quality of work that we do. We have to remain non-judgmental and respect people's choice of lifestyles, respect that people are different and don't allow our own beliefs, our own values to obstruct that quality of work. 2.1 asks you to explain why reflecting on your work practice and your performance is important to develop your skills, knowledge and behaviours or that work practice. Well, if you think about it, if something goes wrong in your work practice, it provides a good opportunity to reflect on, look back on, look at what those failures were, identify any gaps in your knowledge, look at the skills you perhaps didn't have at that time and learn from it. Make positive changes, allow you to develop as a professional through reflection. It allows opportunity to look at any training needs that's perhaps necessary. By allowing you to look back on, reflecting on, focus on those failures and then moving forward and making those positive changes. 3.1 asks you to look at or identify the sources of support for learning and development. Now this could be quite simply just informal. An informal support whereby a resident has given you some feedback about how to do things differently next time. That provides a learning opportunity. Or a family member may have given you some verbal feedback. That's informal support. Now your formal support could be from your line manager in the form of a supervision. Now a supervision should take place theoretically every 3 months, so 4 times a year, and it comes in many different forms. It could be a team meeting, it could be the one-to-one meeting with your line manager, it could be some training on your competencies, so what they've observed you do a medication round, for example. So supervision takes many different forms. It could also be an appraisal that happens once a year or should happen once a year. So there's different sources of support out there can help you with the learning and development. Your colleagues may give you some feedback or they might signpost you to additional training. I know a lot of you have access to e-learning within the care sector, so that's an additional support to upskill yourself, to give you that knowledge, that skill, that behaviour, or provide a learning opportunity for something new. The internet is a great source for support, but not always reliable, so just be careful when you're looking at internet that the sources you're using is authentic and it's accurate and up to date, that it's a reliable source. Your internal policies and procedures, there's always going to be a policy or a procedure to back something up in your workplace. So just be mindful that if you are looking for training opportunities, you may have to fill out what's called a training request form, get authorization from your line manager to look at, are you actually able to go on this training? Is it viable that we put you through it? So there's lots of sources of support out there. You can contact me as your trainer. You can contact any one of your assessors. Excel Training will support you the best they can. Yeah, so for this answer, just look at all the people, all the sources of information you can go to that may be able to give you information, advice on learning and development. 3.2 asks you to describe the process for agreeing or contributing to a personal development plan. Now, a personal development plan would normally be a written record of your ongoing development, the training targets you're working towards, any that you've already met, and it details how you're going to actually meet it. So it will identify what's known as a SMART target. It'll give a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic target that you're expected to achieve, when you're expected to achieve it by, and how you're going to achieve it. So this process, I would expect you to agree with the line manager. A lot of managers expect you to fill out a training request form if it's something outside of the organisation, for them to then authorise and agree that it's going to be beneficial to you and the organisation. Sometimes targets are just given by residents. You might set yourself some personal targets, whereby that target is then recorded just on your own development plan, so you know what you're working towards. But I would expect the formal personal development plan is a process agreed between you and your line manager that is reviewed regularly at supervisions and annually at appraisals to look back and feedback on what you've achieved and what you're actually working towards. 4.1 asks you to describe how a learning activity has improved your skills, knowledge and understanding. Now, to meet this assessment criteria, what I would suggest is ask your assessor to send you a reflective log. We've got access to them, we can email that to you, it's not a problem. And think about a recent learning activity that you've done, whether that be some kind of e-learning, some taught session that you've undertaken, some training from a district nurse, some training from your assessor, and reflect on and look back on the impact that learning's had, how it's had a positive impact on your work performance, what skills and knowledge have you gained from doing that sort of like learning activity, and have you identified any further gaps in your knowledge in order to then set yourself a target to learn in the future. 4.2 asks you to describe how reflecting on a situation has improved your skills, knowledge and behaviours. So what I want you to do is think about a particular incident in your work practice that you've perhaps dealt with. Look back on that incident and reflect on it. Look at what went right, look at what went wrong. Is there any opportunity to learn from that incident through reflection? Look at what you could do differently in the future as a result of that incident. Now, you have to maintain confidentiality once writing about this. Be mindful that we can't include any residents' names, but think back about an incident that you've dealt with. Look at what went wrong, look at what went right, and reflect on that situation and try and identify any improvements that you've made in your work practice as a direct result of reflecting from that incident. 4.3 asks us to explain the importance of continued professional development. Now, as you can appreciate, we work in quite a regulated sector. We've got CQC regulations to comply with, we've got legislations we have to follow. And if you continue your professional development, that's you demonstrating that you're upskilling yourself, that you're giving yourself that knowledge to be able to comply with those legislations, that you're following those regulations and that codes of professional conduct. Upskilling yourself, giving yourself that knowledge and behaviours to be able to do the job, puts trust and faith in the residents and the families in that their loved ones are being cared for by qualified, competent, skillful carers. It also provides an opportunity to make sure that you're giving yourself the adequate skills, knowledge and behaviours to be able to do that job. So you're not then liable should something goes wrong, that you can say that you've had the training, that you are competent to do the job that you've done. So continued professional development is essential to make sure that you're equipped with them skills, that knowledge and behaviour to provide that quality care to those residents, give faith to loved ones and make sure that you are competent in doing your job role. So to finish this unit off then, or at least the knowledge within this unit, 4.4 asks you to describe how feedback from others has developed your skills, your knowledge and your work practice. So think back to any supervision that you've had, any observation of your competence, any appraisal that you may have had, and any feedback that's been given from your line manager, from other staff. Look at that feedback, whether that be constructive, positive or negative, and look at how that's had an impact on your work performance. What have you done differently in order to improve your work performance given that feedback? So within your answer, just look at feedback that you might have had. Again, be mindful of confidentiality. Don't disclose anything that potentially could lead to safeguarding issues. But you need to look at any feedback that you've had and look at how it's had a positive impact on your skills and your behaviours and your work practice following that feedback that you've been given.